Could the unrest in Ferguson, Missouri, could that be the beginning of a civil war? We'll discuss that right after this.
Things I think while I lie awake and contemplate tonight are wearing me out. Well, maybe tomorrow the world will wake and get it right, but I have my doubts, yeah. During the day, well, I design machines of war that scream through the sky. 'Cause I, for one, I like to go to bed free at night under these stars and stripes. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. Yes, I have my doubts, but they'll wind you up and pull the cord until you're spun right out. And I don't understand. Roll the dice and raise the price to feed the machine's mouth. Call it the progress of man. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. I have my doubts, so I'll drink my stuff and raise some hell and shoot my guns to the end of my time. You can have the booze and go to hell and take the guns, but I know they won't be mine. We're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. Yes, I have my doubts. So we're all messed up and out of touch. Let's text someone who's in the other room. So don't wonder why we don't say hi or know anyone. I might as well move to the moon. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. Well, the things I think while I lie awake and contemplate at night are wearing me out.
Welcome back to this special report of Ferguson, Missouri. Now, if you're new to the show and you haven't been here before, normally we start the show out, the live show that is, with a chapter from the Bible every night. We've been doing the chapter or the book of Revelations here lately, but we're going to forego that for the special report. However, there is some scripture that I did want to point out because there seems to be a little bit of a debate over the translation of the language. So I wanted to kind of go over that just kind of as a reference, as to what could be going on in the world. By the way, even though we are a spiritually based show, it's not something that I cram down people's throats. It's not something that I really put a lot of discussion into. Once in a while, at the beginning of the show, after I do the Bible chapter, then I will discuss it for maybe a few minutes. But it's not something, so those that aren't really into religion or into the scripture, don't worry. We got plenty of good stuff for you as well. Even though I think scripture is good stuff, God is good stuff, I don't want anybody to be turned away because that's not all the show is about. It is a news show. So let's start out a little bit with this debate in scripture. Okay, there's been some debate, some discussion about the word ethnos in the Bible, and some believe that it means ethnic group. And so let's go with that for a moment, and let's just read this scripture real quick, and then we'll get on with the information I have and my thoughts as to what's going on. This is Matthew 24, verse 3. Now is he, Jesus or Yeshua, set on the Mount of Olives in Israel. The disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will the sign of your coming? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" And in Matthew 24, verses 6 through 7, say, Jesus answered and said to them, "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Still before the rapture and the apocalypse, for nation," and this is where the debate is, they're saying ethnic group, "will rise against nation," or ethnic group, "and kingdom," which they translate as country, "against kingdom. All these are the beginning of sorrows." So that's some very interesting aspects to what is going on and what people think could be going on. And I just wanted to point that out because I think it's important with what's going on. From a biblical standpoint, if you look at everything, if you look at the big picture, if you look at the entire world and what is going on in the world, everything seems to fit. So I would have to agree that probably the Greek word ethnos would probably mean ethnic, and it's sad what is going on. Wow. I guess there's no better way than to get started. First off, let's talk about a timeline. There's been plenty of talk about when it's going to come out, when they're going to give the announcement. I expect it this week. And there's a reason why I really, really expect it this week. Two reasons. And I'll pull up a couple of news reports here. If I hit the right buttons here. First off, from Fox 2, U.S. cities brace for protests off Ferguson decision. And this comes from Associated Press out of Boston. It says police departments across the country are bracing for large demonstrations when a grand jury decides whether to indict a white police officer who killed an unarmed black teenager in Ferguson, Missouri in August. Police leaders met this week to discuss possible preparations. Los Angeles police have been in touch with their counterparts in Missouri who released their security plans for the indictment decision this week. And Las Vegas police joined community leaders in calling for restraint at a rally planned northwest of the casino strip. For some cities, a decision in the racially charged case will inevitably reignite long-simmering debates over local police relations with minority communities, but big city police departments stress they're well-equipped to handle unruly crowds. And I want to point out that this article was posted at 12:41 p.m. on November 15th. So we're 2 days after this article was posted. They, in this, say this week. Now, they could be talking about their discussion of their security plans, but there is just so much going on that I will get to that is, it's a ringer for what is going on. I think it's very obvious as to what is going on. So let's get on to the next article that kind of gives an idea of a timeline that we're looking at here. And by the way, all the links for all these will be down in the About tab. If you're not used to the Watchman news, I try to remember to get all the links down there, and links to important information, important news websites, for alternative news, because we all know we cannot trust the mainstream media these days. Some of it you can take with a grain of salt. A lot of it you have to kind of read between the lines. So anyway, this says Ferguson area schools send kids home Monday, or send kids home with extra homework. I don't know where I see the Monday. Told there may not be school Monday. Now, I've been keeping an eye on KMOV. Of course, it's Monday morning now. I've been keeping an eye on KMOV's website along with some other websites, and I have not seen anything yet as far as the decision. I kind of suspected that maybe early this morning parents might have gotten a robocall from the schools telling them that there would be no school in session today. That apparently has not happened. So, but here's a couple Twitter tweets, whatever you want to call them. Don't call me Mr. Twitter, I guess. That's discussing about how the kids got sent home with some extra work, and so we'll see how that plays out. But there is something very important that I want to make note of. A gentleman is fired, and I do have a news article for it. I will put the link down in the About tab, but I also have a video as well. So, and here is what the news article looks like. It's from Top Right News, which I'm not real big fan on any political party myself. But Navy veteran exposes disturbing DHS presence near Ferguson and gets fired for it. Well, I've reported in the news about how they've been setting up cell phone jammers. They've been doing all kinds of things in preparation for this announcement. And the interesting thing is this story right here. But it's best said by just playing the video from Argus News, and that is what I will do now. As soon as I found the video. I thought I already had it. I thought I had it loaded up. I did not. Okay, it would only take me a second to get this in here. I apologize. Hey, this happens, guys. By the way, this happens on this show. This is not entirely. This show is being recorded. By the way, I normally do live from 7 to 8 on Monday nights, but this particular show I am doing live. And, well, you know, it's not always perfect, but that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes I forget to add things in, and I have to just go through to my software and do so, which it is done. So I'm doing this show the same way that I do my live shows. I'm not doing any fancy editing. I'm not stopping the video and adding in. I see a lot of people on YouTube that do that. I don't do shows that way. I like shows to be totally unscripted. I like them to be off the cuff, because that's honesty. That's real news. When somebody sits there and they script, I'm sure it looks professional, it looks nice and all that, but to me what's important is the truth and the facts, the information. So without further ado, let me go ahead and play this video taken of this Navy veteran that was fired, and you will see the vehicles.
What started as a simple post of 2 photos on Facebook asking why there were so many Homeland Security vehicles in one spot containing hashtags for Ferguson and No Justice, No Peace ended up being an online post that cost one Navy veteran his job. Mark Pathrath was a houseman at Drury Plaza Hotel in Chesterfield until today, when he says he was terminated for posting those photos after being told on Friday to remove the post. ASN's Chris Gagne sat down with him after our news team drove through the parking garage to verify the location of the vehicles. Here's what Mark had to say.
So we're here with Mark Pathrath, a former employee of Drury Plaza in Chesterfield. And Mark, can you give us a timeline of events which led to us being here interviewing you?
Yes, sir. On Thursday, I took a picture and a short video of the Homeland Security vehicles in the parking garage of Drury Plaza in Chesterfield and posted them to Facebook with the message, "Why are all the cop cars here? I wonder if it has anything to do with Ferguson." Hashtag Ferguson, hashtag No Justice, No Peace. And then come Friday, I was told to remove them by the GM, which is Jeff Baker, which I did. And then on Saturday, today, he told me to go back in his office, which I did. And then the head of security was in there, and he told me I was fired due to the fact that I posted those videos and the picture on Facebook.
And
It cost them $150,000.
in a contract,
Yes, sir.
and that contract was with Homeland Security.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're also a veteran of the U.S. Navy. What was brought up in the conversation about your service to the country?
The head of security actually stated that I dishonorably served my country by posting those videos and the picture on Facebook. You know, if I would have known it was a secret, I wouldn't have done anything at all to harm the company in any way. But that was never brought to my attention, that it was a secret.
And you said today there was a posting to all employees?
Yes, sir. They wrote something on the whiteboard saying that don't stay while they're here. They're just for training, and that's it.
Okay.
Now, we did drive through the parking garage at the Drury Inn and verify that the vehicles were in fact parked there. We attempted to get a comment from the manager on duty, who stated that he was instructed not to comment on this and that he would have his point of contact call us back for a comment. We have not received any comment from Drury Inn as of yet, so stay tuned to Argus Streaming News for updates on this story. Mustafa Hussain for ASN reporting.
I don't know about you, but that's some pretty compelling stuff right there. So, okay, we know it's coming. It's been long coming. They've taken long enough. I think any rational human being already can figure out what the decision is. I really don't think that it's a matter of waiting for them to tell us at this point. So I want to real quick, before I get on to the KKK and their involvement in all this mess, I do want to read a letter that was put out by the city of Berkeley, and I do want to make a couple comments on this letter because I don't think they're giving quite a good enough warning. This came from the city of Berkeley. It's a news alert. There is like 2 or 3 cities that have sent letters, similar letters out to their residents. This says the grand jury decision regarding the Ferguson police officer shooting of Michael Brown is expected this month, rumored as the middle of November, possibly this week. No one knows exactly when the decision will be announced other than local law enforcement and municipal leaders. However, it is important that we all plan ahead in the event that conditions warrant each of us to stay at or very close to our homes for several days. Please make sure your home and family are prepared for a period of disruption just as you would in the event of a storm. Okay, I would like to point out here, please have more supplies than a few days. If this thing absolutely blows up, wow, it could be a while before people get out. As always, I always recommend people, just from prepping and a survival standpoint, at least, at bare minimum, 3 to 4 weeks. Always, whether something like this is going on or not, you should always have enough provisions and the ability to survive for at least a month. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, it's food, it's water, it's supplies. You know, you can always eat it and replenish it. It does not go to waste. So anyway, it says, please consider the following suggestions. Make sure you have plenty of bottled water, a gallon per person per day, and non-perishable, easy to access food in case you can't get to a local store for a few days. Now, good advice, but I would say 3 to 4 weeks. Also, with the water, you know, it takes a lot of room to store very much water. So it would be a very wise idea, and I keep saying this over and over and over, to have a way to filter your own water. It's always good advice to have a way to filter your own water. You can go on YouTube even, and you can see videos on how you can make just a makeshift water filter in case of an emergency out of like a 2-liter empty soda bottle, some charcoal, some sand, some rock, and some cheesecloth or anything. A coffee filter would work in place of the cheesecloth. So where there's a will, there's a way, and I recommend people find those ways. It says, be sure you have an adequate supply of prescription and other medications to last for several days. Keep your vehicle gas tanks full. Yeah, because they make great bombs that way. I'm kidding. It's a joke. Keep cell phones fully charged and operable. Make sure both home and car phone chargers are readily accessible. Now, I'm going to add to this because during Halloween, it was blamed on the protesters. There was a power outage in Ferguson, and like I say, it got blamed on the protesters. I'm not going to go into whether it was them or not. I wasn't there. I don't know who did it, but the power went out. So here's the thing. First off, we know that there's cell phone jammers that have been deployed. Okay, so you may not be able to reach a cell phone network. Okay, not only that, but cell phone towers run on power too, even though they do have battery backup. But let's put all that aside. Let's say the cell phone towers do work, but your electricity does not. Well, if you live in an area that is volatile, let's say, you probably aren't going to want to go outside and plug your phone into your car and sit out there while it charges, or even risk going out there and going back in. I would highly recommend what you do is you bring in a car battery. You put a car battery inside your home, and that you have the ability to connect a car charger to that car battery. If you're not electrically inclined, you might want to have a friend help you hook it up. But anyway, the point is, be able to have a way to charge your phones without, you know, the power coming from the grid. That simple advice could really, really help somebody in a bad situation. So, make 2 lists of emergency information, physician contact names and numbers. Keep 1 in the house and 1 in your car. You need to always do this. Always do this, not just in this case. Develop a contact strategy for your family and loved ones to assure that you know where everybody is and that they are all safe and able to function. Again, something else that should always be done, not just in times of crisis. Parents, prepare a contingency plan for picking up your children from school. Again, always, not just now, always. If you visit a disabled person or senior citizens who live alone, make sure that they are safe and can function where they are. Travel to them may not be possible for a few days. You may want to consider temporarily moving them in with you or others who can assure that their needs are met. Good advice. You always got to think about the people that have issues with doing for themselves. You know, it's not their fault. And in this type of a situation, in a serious crisis situation, it would be very hard for even emergency responders to get to them if something were to happen. If you use public transportation, there may be some delays. If you are traveling, the airport will be protected by the National Guard. All bags will be checked and cars will not be able to remain at the drop-off. So they're already saying that there is going to be some level of National Guard involvement, and I just kind of wanted to point that out. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get to the KKK mess. We'll start out by a letter that the KKK had been sending out to people in the St. Louis area. And wow is about all I can say. It says, attention to the terrorists masquerading as quote-unquote peaceful protesters. You have awakened a sleeping giant. The good people of St. Louis County, of all races, colors, and creeds, will not tolerate your threats of violence against our police officers, their families, and our communities. We will not sit by and allow you to harm our families, communities, property, nor disrupt our daily lives. Your right to freedom of speech does not give you the right to terrorize citizens. We will use lethal force as provided under Missouri law to defend ourselves. And it gives that law. A person may, subject to the provisions of subsection 2 of this section, use physical force upon another person when and to the extent he or she reasonably believes such force to be necessary to defend himself or herself or a third person from what he or she reasonably believes to be the use of imminent use of unlawful force by such other person. And it says, you have been warned by the Ku Klux Klan. There will be consequences for your acts of violence against the peaceful, law-abiding citizens of Missouri. And it gives their contact number and their website. I didn't bother to contact or go to the website. Not a fan of any group like that. Any group like that. No matter what race it represents or religion or anything like that. If I don't know. I don't believe it's our Father's intention for us to be that way towards one another. So anyway, a lot of people might think, well, you can see anything on the internet. That would be easy to make. I myself, I can make that up in Photoshop in like 3 minutes, as long as it took to type it out and place a few pictures. So, and I've heard people say, make comments about, well, nobody really knows if it's real. Well, yeah, we do. They actually have went on the news. Next, I'm going to play a clip. It's 13 minutes long. It's from MSNBC, and you will hear the leader of the Missouri KKK speak on behalf of the Missouri KKK, in which she verifies that this letter is valid. So without further ado, let's play that clip, and we will go from there.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes, and for the second day in a row, Missouri state and local officials have taken to the microphones to talk about their preparations for the moment that everyone in Metro St. Louis is waiting for. The grand jury's decision whether or not to indict police officer Darren Wilson in the shooting death of Michael Brown, an unarmed 18-year-old. Earlier today, just hours before a call with Attorney General Eric Holder, St. Louis Mayor Francis Slay and County Executive Charlie Dooley spoke to the public, echoing much of what Governor Nixon said yesterday.
Violence is not a constitutionally protected right. Damaging property is not constitutionally protected. Inciting violence that is an immediate threat is not protected by the Constitution. We will not tolerate any of it.
Even as Mayor Slay warned against violence, County Executive Dooley emphasized it is not a foregone conclusion.
You're assuming that something's going to go wrong. I'm assuming that things are going to go right. This is a great place to live. People are very civilized. They're going to do the right thing for the right reason. The majority of our constituency are good people. They want law and order. Why would I think anything different?
Almost all the coverage of Ferguson has focused on the question of the protesters, largely African-American from the St. Louis metro area and other places, who are angry about what they view as police misconduct and the shooting death of an 18-year-old boy. Far less attention has been paid to the ripples of discontent and, frankly, racist backlash that you can find on social media pretty easily. Many gunshots in the area are reporting a spike in sales, and now the traditionalist American Knights of the Ku Klux Klan are sensing an opportunity, distributing flyers around the St. Louis area that read, quote, attention to the terrorists masquerading as peaceful protesters. You have awakened a sleeping giant. The good people of St. Louis County, of all races, colors, and creeds, will not tolerate your threats of violence against our police officers, their family, and our communities. We will use lethal force as provided under Missouri law to defend ourselves. Joining me now is Frank Ancona, Imperial Wizard and president of the Traditionalist American Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Frank, where are you distributing these flyers? What are people's reception to them?
Well, these flyers are being distributed across St. Louis County and other areas in Missouri. And the reception, for the most part, has been very good to these flyers. You know, and a lot of what I just heard right before you brought me on here was the police, you know, saying basically the same thing. They're not going to tolerate any violence. And that's what this flyer is addressing. It kind of came about from the hundreds of calls we've been getting from residents of St. Louis County concerned with things that they're seeing on social media about random attacks on whites, you know, DC sniper style type shootings. You know, police officers being threatened that their wives are going to be raped and, you know, that they're all targets. You know, so all these calls are coming to us and people saying, you know, what should we do? What should we do?
Well,
and
what you're telling them to do is arm themselves.
addresses-
But you, it's a bit ironic for you to talk about how bad violence is when you're telling people that you are going to arm yourself and shoot. You're advising people of what the law is for being able to shoot someone. That seems to everyone, I think, seeing this, like incitement. It seems like you are attempting to bring about the exact same thing that you're saying you're against.
No, actually, it's addressing the people who are making these terroristic threats, you know, and letting them know that the people of Missouri, they have rights too that are guaranteed under our Constitution and this particular law, and it's basically educating them on that law, letting them know what their options are, because a lot of people seem to not, you know, they're living in fear, and you know, you don't have to sit back and let somebody throw a Molotov cocktail at you and just sit there. Do you actually
think someone's going to?
There's remedies under the law.
Do you think?
And if you read, if you
and
actually
the remedy
read
under the law,
this,
the remedy under the law is to shoot someone.
The flyer says,
Frank?
if you read it, says defend. It talks about defense. So in order to defend yourself, that means you're being attacked. So this flyer is not inciting violence. It's talking about defending yourself.
Do you think it contributes to the safety of the folks in St. Louis to go around distributing these kinds of flyers? Do you think this is making the situation better?
Definitely, as I've heard from many people, that they feel much better that, you know, this flyers went out and they understand what their options are under the law.
Have you been talking to law enforcement?
I have.
What are those conversations?
And
like?
you know, well, depending on who you talk to, and of course, you know, all these things are off the record, but a lot of them are very frustrated with, you know, how the governor has basically sided with the criminals in a lot of instances.
Wait a second, you have law enforcement.
They have to stand there and get bottles of.
You have law enforcement talking to you off the record,
thrown at them.
confiding in you as a Grand Wizard of the KKK. You're telling me that you have local law enforcement talking to you personally off the record?
I'm telling you, I have friends who know people in law enforcement. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
And right. And anyway, you know, why should they be expected to sit there and be told that somebody's gonna go rape their wife? What job? How can you expect someone to do a job and put up with that? That, to me, that is a threat of violence against their family member.
Lots of things get said on
and they
social
should be
media.
able to respond to that.
Thank you, Frank Ancona. Joining me now, Liz Brown, columnist at the St. Louis American and criminal defense attorney. Liz, this seems to be the reason I wanted to have Frank on, and it's not something I really like doing, is that there is this kind of there's ripples of something dark and ugly that I've started to see in social media around folks in the St. Louis area that I worry about in advance of what's coming down the pike. And so much of the attention has been on, quote, the protesters getting violent. And it doesn't seem to me that the ugliness is necessarily coming from those quadrants, or certainly not from those quadrants exclusively.
Well, I think that what we really have to have a discussion about, Chris, is who sets the tone? What tone has been set? And I would charge that the tone has been set that would allow for a racist organization like the Klan to feel comfortable in recruitment. And what is the tone that's been set? The tone is that the tone that has been set is that African American, largely peaceful African American protesters and activists need to have a response, a military response to them. It's almost like they've taken a page and twisted it out of The Untouchables, where he says that, you know, if you bring a rock, we'll bring a tank. That's the response that has been to the largely African-American protesters. So you set the tone that these are people that we need to respond to in this type of way. When you have a chief of police in St. Louis that's racially profiling people that commit crimes as black on black crime, what does that tell? What is that saying? That's saying that crime has a face and the face is an African-American face, and you don't have to worry about the crime because it's just black folks hurting other black folks. So when we set the tone that a certain group of people responds in this lawless type of way, and that we have to respond to them in a militaristic type of way, you open the door for an organization, a racist organization like the Klan, to come in and take advantage of that.
So you think the way that the tone that has been set by officials so far, who have been, by what they're saying, I'm going to talk to Chief Dotson in just a moment, they're saying they are trying to be calm, they're trying to urge people to be peaceful, that just to follow their First Amendment rights, to not use violence. What is wrong? Well, you think they're sending a tone of suspicion?
Well, let's unpack the governor's response, or the governor's press conference. 1,000 people. Why are you saying 1,000 people? What you can take out of that is that that's what we need to respond to peaceful protesters. Protesters haven't shot and killed anyone. Protesters haven't harmed people. So why are we responding to them? Because it's these types of protesters. You're setting the tone that these types of people need to be responded to in this way. And that opens the door for the Klan to go in and to recruit people. I lay it at the feet of law enforcement, how they've prosecuted this case, how they've responded to peaceful protesters. I lay it at their feet. This is their fault.
Liz Brown, thank you very much. And joining me now is St. Louis Police Chief Sam Dotson. Chief, we'll respond to Liz Brown about the tone that's been set by local law enforcement and the tone that you're trying to set in the announcement with the mayor and Charlie Dooley today.
Well, I think the tone here in St. Louis is one that we're working on bridging gaps. While lots of people are talking, we're actually sitting down with organizers of protesters trying to come to common ground. We've talked about what the rules of engagement are. We've talked about a variety of things. So I think there's a lot of dialogue that's going on at a very grassroots level. I think that's important.
You know, I got to say that there's this expectation that you can sort of feel brewing in the air, and I think probably the press plays part of that. But it's not just the press. I mean, Governor Nixon coming out and saying we've got the National Guard on standby. You know, at what point do you enter into a kind of vicious cycle where there's this sort of self-fulfilling nature to the whole thing, where you've got folks like the Grand Wizard of the Klan distributing flyers and people in gun shops saying this has been good for business, and everybody fearful that something will happen, and that itself creating the conditions for something ugly to happen?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And I think the first guest didn't help the conversation and the dialogue at all that's going on in here in St. Louis. But I think the governor's tone was, we are going to protect people. We're going to keep people safe. We're going to protect property. And we're also going to protect the constitutional rights of people that want to come out and have their voices heard. The conversation about the National Guard, if the governor does decide to activate the National Guard, it's to help support local law enforcement. It's not to take the front line. It's to allow us to do our jobs better. I think that's what gets lost in the conversation. I see your tagline, preparing for war. Actually, in St. Louis, we're preparing for peace. We're trying to get to that point.
You know, you say that, but, you know, we know that there's $172,000 spent on things like tear gas and strange kind of cluster grenade tear gas devices from St. Louis County. That quote comes directly from a family member of Michael Brown. That's why it's in quotation marks there. There are people who feel that the remarks of the governor, the data that was acquired by The Guardian about the preparation in St. Louis County, feels to them more like there is preparation for war. And obviously, you can only control the police department you can control, but we're talking about a lot of police and law enforcement agencies across the whole metro region.
Well, but I think you have to look at it in context. We have a responsibility to keep people safe. That's our #1 goal. We have a responsibility to protect property. We have a responsibility to protect people's constitutional rights. So the equipment purchases that are happening are to further those endeavors. They're not to go out and to go on the offensive. It's actually just the contrary. If you look at what's happened over the last several months, we've done an unbelievable job of keeping people safe, both on the law enforcement side and on the protester side. That's really what this investment is about. So to characterize it as an offense is not correct at all. Really what it is the tools that we have to keep us all safe in our community.
So, Chief, what have you learned? I mean, what have you learned of watching this play out? Obviously, there have been protests both in North County. They've been all over Metro St. Louis. They've been in the heart of St. Louis. Your police have interacted with protesters. What have you learned?
I think what we've learned is exactly what the governor said and the mayor and the county executive. Hey, we have lots of areas to grow. Jobs, for example. The governor announced a program for 2,000 in jobs. We're talking about a lot of things. So what I've learned is the dialogue is the most important thing that's happening. What I've learned is that we have to work at a very grassroots level. This has become about law enforcement's interaction with the community. There's a lot of room for improvement, on both sides. And that's the dialogue that has to continue. The noise that we hear about preparing for war and the equipment purchases, that really needs to take a backseat. What needs to happen are organized groups from the protester side need to sit down with government officials on our side and really say, how are we going to move this region forward? How are we going to continue the dialogue? The grand jury ultimately will make a decision. Regardless of what that decision is, we still have a community here. We have to move this community to a more positive place. That's what the dialogue is. That's what I've learned.
Do you know what the grand jury's decision is?
No, I don't. And I wake up every morning to a text or a tweet that says that it's coming out. The only people that know that are the grand jury, and they haven't, as far as I know, have not made a decision yet.
Chief Sam Dotson of St. Louis, thank you very much for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
So, can we tell which ones there were having a scripted conversation? I think it's really obvious. Let me explain to you real quick how the media works. So, this is what you've got. You've got the show's host, okay, and you have three people being interviewed. First, you have the guy from the KKK. Then you have a lady that speaks from... I think she was a lawyer, right? But she speaks on civil rights. And then you have the chief of police. Now, the reason why they do that, the reason why they threw that person in the middle there, because they didn't need that middle person, but the reason why they threw the person in the middle there is, if you notice, Chief Dotson only made one quick brief statement and reference in reply to the KKK. And he did not focus on it. He did not make a big point about it. Folks, I think this is planned. A lot of people think, for some reason, that the KKK is just a bunch of rednecks from the South, and that may be partially true, but those that are in charge, that are in ranking positions of the KKK, are typically wealthy, older people. So you can kind of do the math. You can come up with who it is that's behind this. I think this is a call for a civil war. I saw the same thing with the Trayvon Martin case. They were doing everything they could to ignite a war, and they just could not do it, no matter how hard they tried. Very interesting stuff. But that's a little insight on how the media works, how the media... I'm trying to think. They will morph a story into what they want. And you could tell that Chief Dotson and the host of the show was talking back and forth with a script, to where the other two guests did not have a script at all. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I did bring up my... I'm a little behind on that, huh? Again, this is just like the live shows. It's no different. It's just I'm actually recording this to my hard drive, and we'll be uploading it in a moment after I'm done with the show. So I wanted to kind of go over one more thing with this, one more aspect of why I think that they are trying to spark a civil war in this country. And if you listen to this show, if you follow this show, we talk a lot about things like Agenda 21. We talk about here soon we're going to be doing a birthday bubble campaign, to where I'm going to provide quite a bit of documentation to show what's going on, not only in this country but in the world. Things like documents right from the Army's websites, the Civilian Inmate Labor Program, the Internment and Resettlement plans that they have set to go in place. Of course, by now, if you're listening to this show, you've probably heard or know of the FEMA camps. Just a number of different things that this all leads to. But they have to have a reason. They have to have something that they can say, okay, we need to lock down the country, or the UN needs to come in and quote unquote save the day. So we in the Truther movement, if you want to call us that, some people call us conspiracy theorists, whatever title you want to give us, it really doesn't matter. We look for the truth. We watch for what's going on in the world, and we know what's to come. We just are trying to be there on the front lines of being able to make the call so that those that have prepared, those that do intend on trying to remain free, to retain their liberty, will be able to get a little bit of a head start. Because once they go to lock down this country, it's going to happen so very fast. And if you don't think so, read a little bit of history. Read about Nazi Germany. Read about how quickly they locked that country down once they started putting people on trains and in trucks and whatnot. It happened really quick, and it's going to happen even quicker in this country because of all the technology. And, well, you know, obviously they failed in Nazi Germany, and they do not want to fail again. Folks, it's the same entities. It's just a different era. That's all it is. And it's global now. Why do I say it's global? Well, this is why. The United Nations, Michael Brown's parents went to the United Nations. Okay? Now, I think that they should have went and spoke about the police brutality and the militarization of the police across the country, or in the world for that matter. And they went more or less just on the behalf of their son and on the behalf of Ferguson. So I kind of disagreed with that. There's a much bigger world out there than just Ferguson, Missouri. But the response from the United Nations was an absolute blow-off. I mean, they just totally blew off the request for help, more or less. And I've got a video I'm going to play that shows you that. And we will go ahead and go to it. This video is only a few minutes long, so without further ado, here we go.
The United Nations is responding to claims made on behalf of Michael Brown's family. Brown's parents and activists are telling international human rights leaders that U.S. police are using excessive force. Our Christina Coleman is the only local reporter covering the story in Switzerland. She has reaction from the vice chairman of the UN Committee Against Torture.
The parents of Michael Brown have been very active here at the United Nations in Geneva. They say they are very grateful that their voices can be heard on this international level. After meeting with international media, Leslie McSpadden and Mike Brown were surrounded by the press as they walked through the hallways of the UN in Geneva. And people noticed, often stopping to ask who they were. I tell them Michael Brown's parents, and they would say, oh, that's who they are.
They give us a chance to tell our story.
Brown's parents are part of a delegation organized by the U.S. Human Rights Network. The delegation submitted a 13-page brief to the UN that states Brown's body was, quote, left bleeding in the street in plain view. It goes on to say that public officials have shown a clear reluctance to actively pursue Officer Darren Wilson's prosecution. Did you read the brief that was submitted?
Yes, sure, we have seen it.
The Committee Against Torture vice chairman addressed the document, which also states that Ferguson residents have experienced long-standing degrading treatment of black racial minorities by an overwhelmingly white police force. What do you think of what is in that brief? Do you substantiate those claims? Do you feel as though this is something that needs to be investigated?
Well, actually, I have to tell you that the committee usually addresses systematic issues, ensure all individual cases are taken into account, and especially the ones which are communicated to us. We will have recommendations on each and every issue, but some of them might not be based solely on individual cases, but more on systemic issues. But sure, all the information communicated to us will be taken into account.
U.S. federal officials will have an opportunity to respond to the question that the committee member from Denmark asked about whether or not there was accountability for the policing tactics in Ferguson. Reporting from the United Nations in Switzerland, Christina Coleman, News Channel 5.
So it looks to me, or sounds to me, like they were pretty well blown off whenever they, when they talked, or when the UN responded. It doesn't look like the UN's going to get involved, which is a good thing. On the surface, I don't want the UN involved in anything in this country, and you shouldn't want them involved either. It's bad news. If you don't think the UN is bad news, then you need to go to the UN's own website and read the Agenda 21 plans. Again, people that frequent this show or shows like my show, they already know. They already know. If you don't know about the United Nations and their Agenda 21, you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't immediately go to Google or whatever your favorite search engine is and read the 351-page document. You will see the past, the present, and what's planned for the future. It's not good stuff, folks. It is not. So anyway, that's kind of a culmination of what is going on to this point. And I will real quick, I will check a news website real quick to make sure that nothing else has happened in the 50 minutes or so that I've been speaking to you. And I don't see anything, any updates as far as the Ferguson situation as of, let's see, 10:17 a.m. on Monday, November 17th, 2014. So that's what we have. We're all waiting. All I can say is I hope everybody can remain calm. People have the right to protest. This stuff that I'm seeing on social media is absolutely ridiculous. People are getting attacked, I mean absolutely verbally attacked and threatened because they want to stand up for something. You know, I see a lot of people that claim to be Christians attacking the protesters. And it's like, I don't understand it. God tells us to love all people, not just people we agree with. God even tells us to love our own enemies. And I think that's so important. I think it's so important. Just like you see in front of you, walk with God. Walk with Him. It's not easy to do. It is a very hard thing to do, and we all sin. Nobody is perfect. But at least I try to listen to everybody. I try not to condemn anybody. And I believe everybody's got their right to what they think and how they feel. I just wished a lot more people would be a little bit more logically based behind it. So anyway, that's what I have for you now. I will be back later tonight, 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, to do my regular live show. And if anything pops up between now and then, I'll make sure to post an update. So there you have it. May God bless you. May you walk with Him. Always be one with your spirit. I love you all. I'll see you later.